Hi everyone, today's August 18th, 2018, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And in the month of August, we finally got some big news that Konami dropped on us. We finally got some news of nerfs of decks for hire, along with Amazoness and some other decks, but that is pretty big news, and people have been complaining about for hire since they took over the meta, and they have been pretty dominant, and they will remain dominant for the few days they still remain, but we will talk all about that big development. So, Deck Tech, where are you this week in Duel World?
So, in Duel World. I have not been participating in the fur hire dominance since then, or even my beloved Amazonesses. I instead decided to play with some Gem Knights. I saw a really good post on Reddit about how to play the deck and how to build it, and it was a little different than how I had built it before, but I remembered that I really liked the deck, and so I wanted to try it again with this person's advice, and it's been working out pretty well. It's a fun deck, and I think there's a very solid kind of core and engine there. You can often win on your first attack if you set it up right, and it's just fun to just do a lot of crazy things. The main thing that had changed, well, I guess I might as well just go over it all because I haven't really talked about the deck too much in depth, but it's a 30-card deck for sure, and you play Grasslick Screener, and the reason for that is that you have the Gem Knight Fusion, which is a spell card, and it's like polymerization specifically for Gem Knights, but the upside is that if it's in your graveyard, you can banish one of your Gem Knight monsters to add it to your hand. So you can mill it away with the Grasslick Screener and then get it for card advantage. It also lets you do crazy things where you can do like 4 fusion summons in one turn or something like that just by continually getting stuff out of the graveyard from it. And then you've also got Gem Knight Lazuli, which is just a 1-star Earth Gem Knight rock, but her effect is if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target one normal monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And then you've even got a Gem Knight Obsidian. That one's actually from the hand. But the idea is basically you activate the Grasslick Screener and a couple of your effects trigger, or you get some card advantage back from doing that so that you can then do multiple polymerization effect or fusion effects at that point. And the first one you do, if you can, is Gem Knight Amethyst, which is just a Gem Knight monster and 1 Aqua type. And when it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you return all set spell and trap cards from the field to the hand. So if you do that one first, and then you do another one and use that one as part of the fuel for the second one, then you've kind of set up your whole combo, because at that point they can't all of their set traps and stuff get returned to their hand, and then they don't really have much of an interaction. So you can OTK people. I beat some top meta decks. It does feel kind of fragile though, so it's like I'm not sure how far it will take me beyond. I'm still in Platinum because I didn't hit King of Games last season, so I'm having a good time Platinum, mostly winning. I feel like there's a lot of room to play with the deck still to try to figure out exactly how we want to build it. But it's fun for this part of the meta, or this part of the ladder at least, and maybe it'll be better once we hit these nerfs that we were talking about.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, I also blinged out my Grasslick Screeners, just for funsies.
Yeah. Too many resources?
Yeah, for one of them, that's what happened. I was like, okay, I had too many of the rare gems, so I decided to bling one of them out, and then I was like, well, it looks stupid if just one of them is, so I did the other 2 for no reason. Just to match
Grass is a bigger investment, but you could actually get the prismatic, so it's different.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's what I meant. They're prismatic, all 3 of them.
Nice.
Because I'm a baller. What about you? What are you up to this week?
Well, I haven't played much ranked, and I started a new vampire list yesterday, right off Duel Links meta, and they got King of Games with this Life Point Boost Alpha deck. And the one I was using before was a Beatdown, so I figured I might as well switch over. And in the process, level up Bastion Mizawa for gems and to surprise people on the ladder. And it's a more refined list because the one I ran previously had a lot of 1-ofs, and this one has more 2-ofs and 3 Vampire Graces. I was playing around with one of the cards that I've never used before, Grimson, and there was actually a card, Vampire's Desire, which I never used correctly. That's sad, I never used the card correctly the whole time. So I cut those. I mean, the deck didn't have them, but it was a different list, so I'm playing that. I got back to Plat 2. I was previously in Plat 1, so I'm back in Plat 2. But now I'm facing a lot of random Unga Bunga decks, so I don't know if that's easier. That's probably going to be easier in general, but you don't know what to expect. So there's only less than 2 weeks before the season ends, and I'd like to get to Legend at the very least. Just getting the games in again, so... And Vampires are fun, too. Just switching over to a new deck list makes me feel like I'm playing a new deck, so I'm not tired of this. I'm probably not going to play for hires. I'll let them get nerfed, and I didn't get any value from my purchase.
You're a silly boy. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way, where it's like, I could be practicing, for what will happen after the nerfs, but I've just played so much of Amazonas that I decided I'd rather play something else. And it's nice because it has kind of reinvigorated my desire to play the game, even though Hearthstone is still kind of in the midst of its most recent release, so all of that hype is still going on, and it's still pulling me in that direction. Just finding this random deck that I really enjoy has pulled me back towards Duel Links as well.
Yep, that's what Duel Links needs, fun decks.
Yeah.
That can win games.
Right, at least enough of them.
Yes. Alright, this week in esports we have 2 things to talk about. Duel Links Meta Weekly 33, which we'll go over fast because this is the last of the old meta. All top 4 brought Beatdown for hires. 3 of the 4 brought Amazonas, so a lot of the same decks here. We expect the next weekly to come after the nerfs. That's Tuesday.
Yeah. They did a very interesting... They have stats. We have the link, of course, to the little write-up. I like the way that they did this deck type pairs breakdown to show... So they show like how many of each deck is brought, but then they also show it, and they do that for the whole tournament and then also for the top 16, but then they also show like which specific combos were brought. And of course, for hires, Amazonas is the most prevalent by a pretty solid margin. But for hire spellbooks is a strong second most popular, it looks like. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. I like that.
37% were Amazonas and for hire.
Yeah.
Anything else notable? Let's see. Archfiends, there's 1. Not to control Cypher Soldier. So there's some rogue decks that didn't make it. Whatever. Omvi, Delzin, Switcheroo, Spellbooks, Beatdown for hires. Not much to say. The Spellbooks are obviously going to be this format from now on with the Silent Magician instead of those other guys. For hire list is as good as it gets right now before the nerfs.
Yep. We could probably expect to see more of this, the spellbooks make a little bit of a comeback, right? So the strongest deck was for hires, pretty much consensus, and then second strongest, nearly as much of consensus, was Amazonas. Some people thought it was spellbooks, but most people thought spellbooks was either the second or third strongest deck. So just naturally, when both of the 2 strongest decks are going to get a little weaker, you'd expect the third strongest deck to get a little stronger comparatively. Of course, if the meta shifts differently, such that something else comes up that has bad matchups, it won't get better. But as far as I understand it, Fur Hires was already a fairly tough matchup for it, so I don't think it could get much worse. So I do think Spellbooks will probably get a little bit better.
And that next box could just come, whenever.
Well, yeah, there's that too. That could just shake up everything.
Second place, Black Snake, Parasite, Amazonas, and Beatdown for hires. This version of the Amazonas deck does run the Tiger, the baby Tiger, So, um, just as a little teaser for later, you expect this to be the strongest version without the baby tiger, but Parasite.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm just thinking about if we have a more open meta, then we don't need to target certain things as much. And I think that maybe the Parasite Infestation will be the best version for doing that. The only notable, I mean, not only notable, but the main notable thing about this list is that it runs the two Paleozoic Canadia, which are not in every single list. So it's kind of interesting.
Dark Ghosto YouTube, third place. Endless Trap Hell Amazoness, Beatdown for Hires. This Amazoness deck is a bit like the older one. What? I guess the Treacherous Trap Hole, it makes sense for the Witch Raider, but what are the chances of it just bricking? Because there's so many traps in the Amazoness deck.
So the reason why I really like the Endless Trap Hell version and just Amazoness in general is that there's pretty much no dead cards, especially when you run the Witch, because you can always use your useless traps for fuel for the Princess or the Witch. So you're right. Every once in a while, you'll just open a hand with like 4 traps, and you're like, okay, cool, I just lost this game. But that's very rare. And so I don't think that that's a major concern. And then once you get kind of your engine going, you're in a good spot. So I do think the Endless Trap Hell version of the list will remain very strong. And I could be wrong about it not being the most powerful after the nerfs. I think right now it is probably the most powerful. It seems like it's definitely the most popular. But I think part of the reason for that is that it is, in my opinion, a little stronger against the Fur Hires, or there certainly can be, because it runs something like 4 to 6 cards specifically designed to counter the Fur Hires. This one has 2 Treacherous Trap Hole and 2 Floodgate Trap Hole, but we've also seen lists with Paleozoic Canadias and stuff like that. And the basic plan is that with the Endless Trap Hell, you have those 4 to 6 cards in your deck, and then you get them back as well. And you have all these ways to kind of endlessly counter the Fur Hires, or at least try to. Which, of course, it's not endless because you only need to do it for a couple turns until you've done enough damage to win. But basically, that is the reason why that list became so popular. So I think I'm expecting Fur Hires to take a big hit and probably not really see much play in the ladder anymore. And because of that, I think we can switch back to the Parasite version after the nerfs. But that doesn't mean this version's bad.
And Grucius, third place. Endless Trap Hell Amazoness, Beatdown for Hires. This Amazoness deck has Widespread Ruins instead of the Wall of D. Amazon Sage as well.
Yes. Yeah, the Sage might see a little bit more play. We were talking about this before we started recording. Once Baby Tiger is out of lists, Sage might come into more lists. This is kind of the same setup that we're seeing with the Endless Trap Hell as the previous one. What you want is you want 4 to 6 cards for the Fur Hires. This one has 3 Canadias and 1 Treacherous Trap Hole. And then you can run whatever remainder slots as your just kind of general tech or general solid cards. This one has the Widespread Ruins. The other one had the Wall of D, like you said. Those are just solid cards that you can get a lot of value out of because they're just strong traps.
All right. We're going to talk about the Clan Wars Invitational. This happened last Saturday. Clan Wars is basically Duel Links Meta's new team format, so they go 5v5. The teams can have as many people as possible, I think. Not as many people as possible. 5 to 15 people in each clan. They go 5v5, 3 match wins. So this one was 20 clans. They all came up with their own avatars, their team logos, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And some of these are like really good. Good for these people.
And the first place team is from Japan, Warafuzaki. We're talking about some of their cool lists. They have some really cool lists. Clever deck lists.
Yeah.
Let's see, Taichi. This is the 30-card beatdown grass vampire deck. As such, you try to put as many vampires as possible. You kind of see the core You have the Grimson. Grimson wasn't really played before, but I've seen it in some King of Game lists since. There's the Scourge, Scarlet Scourge, Bacon Saver. That's a card you typically don't see. You have your Grass. Yeah, you have like one of everything, and then some takeovers. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the takeovers. Did we talk about that before? That picture looks different to me.
It's the same card. Yeah, it tutors out the field. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, this is just very interesting. I haven't played the vampires because you're the one who ended up kind of buying through that box more than I did, but this looks different than any of the other lists I've seen, so it's fun. I like it.
And a fixture of this team apparently is Last Gamble Batterymen, and it's a very expensive deck, so we don't expect everyone to play it, but it's pretty much what we expect with the monsters. The Snipe Hunter build of the Last Gamble Batterymen.
Yeah, people wouldn't be super familiar with it because it's not the most common deck. Like you said, it's a little expensive, and it's kind of one of those tier 2 decks, so you would think that if you're going to spend a bunch of gems on something, you would probably get something that is a little more competitive for most people on the ladder, but when you have to bring multiple different decks or you just want to play something fun, the people who've invested a lot can play something like this. It looks a lot like the ones that we saw in the World Champs, which is kind of like when the deck was starting the hype train. Right before that was when it really kind of first showed up. But the idea is that, well, in the World Champs, they had to bring multiple decks. So it makes sense that it would see play there. And I think they probably do in this format as well. It looks like every deck is a totally different deck. So that makes sense.
They just adjust their rosters, obviously, depending on the matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Non has a Parasite Amazoness deck, 21 card build, and a beatdown version of Masked Heroes. Not sure if there's anything too remarkable about these two decks.
Yeah, both of them seem to be pretty standard. The Parasite Infestation already has no baby tigers in it, so he's ready.
He nerfed his deck before the announcement.
Yeah, he did. So for those who are curious, the thing that he put in that you don't normally see is he has a second Amazon as Paladin. So that's kind of, I guess, what he would sub for what most people would consider the normal list.
Secretly a Konami employee. I think that's the thing.
Yes.
Chariot, Beatdown for Hire, Show of Nightmares, Spellbooks. I thought this list was nerfed too, but it's not. Chariot's deck will be totally illegal. It's lose 4 cards from it, and probably the Hate Trunates too. There's no point in running Hate Trunate. So, and Show of Nightmares too. That's a skill that took off with Worlds in Spellbooks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was something we pretty much hadn't seen before then, and now it sees a little bit of play. I think I like the switcheroo better when you don't have to have the restrictions, but it is a fun. I really like that it's a different skill, and it definitely has some benefits to it as well.
That, Endless Trap Hell Amazoness, that has Memory Loss. This one has no Tiger as well. Memory Loss, and Amazon's Fighter, and Last Gamble Batterymen as well.
Yeah, like you said, again, no baby tiger, which is interesting. I would still run it if I were trying to win, before it were necessary to be taken out, but he's got the 1 fighter and the 1 sage as kind of the cards that maybe you might consider the replacement for the tiger. Still has the same basic setup where you have, this one has 5 cards that are intended to hit the Fur Hires, the 1 Memory Loss, which also hits your mirror matches, and then 3 Paleozoic Canadia, which is a great card that I don't have, and then the 1 Treacherous Trap Hole. The other interesting thing is that it runs 3 Wall of D, and therefore it ran out of space and has none of the willpower, which is weird. You normally expect to see at least 1 willpower.
Simon, Restart, Spellbooks, and Switcheroo Amazoness. This Amazoness deck is notable for having the card Downbeat.
Yeah, so we talked about this one as well. Also cuts the willpower, by the way. So one thing that I've always liked about Amazoness is that it's not like a set list. In addition to having the different skills and different kind of builds based on those skills. We also just have different cards popping up every once in a while and innovations in the deck happening all the time, which is really cool. And I got lucky that I was able to play a lot with this deck because I really enjoy it. The reason for the downbeat is to give you essentially a fourth copy of the Princess. So downbeat, we've seen it a couple times before, but in case you don't remember, it's a normal spell. It reads, tribute one face-up monster, special summon from your deck one monster with the same original type and attribute as the tributed monster, but one level lower. And then you can only activate one per turn, but he only runs one anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so the plan is you can hit a tiger or a swordswoman or a fighter, and those are all Earth Warriors, at level 4 Earth Warriors, and then that can get you a Princess, which is a level 3 Earth Warrior. Also, the Princess can go into a Scout. I'm not sure how often that would actually happen, but it's possible. I like it. It's fun tech. I do think it's a little odd that he's not running at least one willpower, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is cool because it guarantees that you have a target for willpower. Sometimes when you're playing in Amazoness mirrors, you just end up banishing all of each other's monsters, and it just kind of comes down to who has the last monster and can attack into face with it. And so and your willpowers just become useless because you're banishing each other's stuff and there's never a target. If you have downbeat, then you guarantee yourself a target. So that's kind of cool. And it would also allow you to do stuff like, it would give you a reason to use it on the Princess, because you could play the Princess, downbeat, get your scouts out, use the willpower to get the Princess back and gain just a bunch of card advantage from doing that, but I guess they didn't want to do that.
Yoshifumi Beatdown Masked Heroes, and Parasite Amazoness. This Parasite Amazoness deck is the more normal one, but they do run 3 Paladins, I guess.
Yeah, the 3 Paladins is not what I would expect. It seems like, well, it is definitely running the Parasite Infestation skill, but not building towards it. So it runs no Lava Golem, which I like. I think I'm like the last person who uses it, though. It seems like no one else uses Lava Golem in it. It doesn't run the Jade Whistle, though, which is a lot more common. So it's kind of just like, all right, I'm going to use this skill, and every once in a while it's going to disrupt your draw, but I'm not really going to like change my deck based on it. I don't want to. I guess the thinking is that if you change your deck for the skill, then you've effectively negated the advantage, because you are playing worse cards in your deck to make the skill work, when the whole point of the skill is that you're just messing up their draw every once in a while and dealing a little bit of damage from it. I disagree, but I probably haven't tested it as much as this guy has, so he came to that decision. Pretty cool.
And Maba, Last Gamble, Batteryman, and Switcheroo Amazoness. The Batteryman deck has 3 Needle Ceilings, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's another cool card that I wish I had, but anyway. Switcheroo, yet another option for the Amazoness. You face tank a decent amount of damage. This one also doesn't run the Baby Tiger, so everyone's getting ready for it. And it looks like there's just lots of options still available for Amazoness. The idea, like I said, is often with Amazoness, you have to attack in either with your first Princess to get the Queen out to kind of start the engine going, or just throughout the game, you're attacking into stuff to clear stuff out of the way with the Onslaught, and you end up taking a decent amount of damage, and so Switcheroo makes sense. I ran Switcheroo when we were doing the 5,000 life points, and I was way more liberally just running into stuff, and it was awesome. It worked really well, so I think it could still work with 4,000 life points, and it might be the way that the decks go after the nerfs.
Dark King Beatdown for Hires, a 21-card version, and Show of Nightmares spellbooks, and we always have to point out there is a magical something in this deck.
That's right. There's a magical something for this list.
And Kiwi, My Monster Cards, Amazoness. This one has a Baby Tiger, so that's notable. And Last Gamble, Batteryman.
Yep. So still has the Tiger in there, but as you can see, you can run the Scout. There's 5 in there with the Tiger, so you can very easily cut the Tiger and just put in any other Amazoness, or a lot of the lists before were running a Sphere Karibo or 2. You could put that in the slot. You could very easily sub it out and still have a very solid list.
And finally, Link, Restart, Spellbooks, Titan Showdown, Masked Heroes. I like this Titan Showdown list because you could easily lose 2,000 and then one turn kill your opponent.
Yeah, that's fun. I like it a lot.
Yep. And they lose 2,000 with Ties of the Brethren or some Cosmic Cyclones.
Yes, yeah, it runs 3 Cyclones and 3 Ties of the Brethren. Seems pretty all in, but that's fun. I like it. This is a crazy list.
So you might be following Clan Wars as it goes. Apparently, it's a whole season, so we're gonna see a new winning deck team every time, unless this team wins every single week with the cover of their deck list.
Yeah, it's fun.
They'll probably bring different decks. It's probably very likely they're gonna submit different decks every week.
Yeah, and both to keep your opponents on their toes, but also just because the meta's changing. I guess the past couple weeks it hasn't been that dynamic, but it's still changed a little bit. And in this game, since they release cards so frequently, there's always a chance that it just completely shifts on its head between any week. So they'll probably submit at least slightly different decks every time.
Alright, the main PvE event this week is Chazz, Serious Chazz, second time it is coming back. You said you used a Dark Paladin farm, I did as well. Tell us how that works.
Yeah, so basically the plan is to get out Dark Paladin as soon as possible, preferably on the first turn if you can, and then you use it to counter, he's got Lightning Vortex, I think it's called. Yeah, and then a couple other cards like Level Up can cause problems too, so you just counter those while you can, and eventually you do your normal finisher of Vassal and Secret Pass and Union Attack. The deck, the Dark Paladin is bigger than anything in his deck except for the level 10 dragon, I think. Yeah. And so basically, if you just counter the level up, then he can't win. You have to play it a little differently, kind of actually the exact opposite versus the level 30 and 40 is the one thing to look out for because I messed up my first couple because I wasn't sure. What you do is against the level 30, you have to attack into everything to prevent him from getting any of the XYZ contact fusion monsters out because they can kill they have an effect. I actually don't even know what they do. Just every once in a while, they come out and they kill you.
XZ Cannon, discard 1 card, destroy 1 monster.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Thank you. So, yeah. Don't want him to do that because then he can kill your Dark Paladin. So you have to attack into everything. But against the level 40, it's the opposite. He has a trap, and again, I'm uninformed, so I don't actually know what it's called. But he has a trap that when you attack and destroy a monster, I believe, then the trap activates, and it destroys the strongest monster on the field, which is almost invariably your Dark Paladin. So against the level 40, I attack nothing. And as soon as I get the Dark Paladin out, all I do is just pass every turn, counter whatever I need to counter until it's time for me to do my finisher.
Yeah. And I only have 1 Dark Paladin. I don't know how many you have. But you have to get another guy out. So sometimes you fuse another guy, something like Dark Flare Knight. Or you could tribute summon for a Buster Blader or a Dark Magician.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also only have 1, so I do the Dark Flare Knight.
Yep. Alright, let's go over his cards. Oja Match. This is a spell, quick play. Send 1 Ojama from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard. Add to your hand 1 Ojama monster with a different name and 1 armed dragon from your deck or graveyard. Then immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 of them. During your main phase, you can banish this card from the graveyard, then target 3 of your banished Ojamas, shuffle them into the deck, and draw a card. So this is a very situational, weird card, but what it does is basically gets an armed dragon level 5 onto the board. I think that's the main ability. I've seen this played against me, so that's where I am at ranked. I'm facing this stuff. But you never know. It's something. They forced character decks on us too recently, so this could be a character-worthy card, like a special duels card.
That's a good point. I guess you should never really count anything out. Now that they've done that, they might end up changing the character rules or something so that this becomes one of the better ones. Just like how the what are they called? The Cyrus guys.
Oh yeah, the roids.
The roids were terrible, and then we ended up playing them. It was one of the best character lists out there. So like you said, you never know. But for normal PvP constructed, this card is terrible.
No, it isn't platinum, I guess. I guess the thing is you have to run Ojamas with the armed dragons, and then the armed dragons themselves have really low defense. That's their problem, I think.
Right, yeah. It's like you need to play two things that are individually pretty bad, and then the payoff is that it helps you facilitate the less bad of the two, but that's not a huge payoff for pretty much playing a deck full of bad cards, I think.
Ojamandala. This is a very interesting card because it's the first non-TCG OCG card. It's from the anime, and then they got it immediately to Duel Links. So we've made it. It is a normal spell. Activate by paying 1,000 life points if you have Ojama green, yellow, and black in your graveyard. Special summon one of each from your graveyard. So this is after you've fused your Ojama King, and the king is gone for some reason. You could fuse another one. I think that's the main thing with this card. I don't know about you, but I never farmed one of these. They just gave me one, and I never got any more.
Oh, really? I had the opposite. I got really lucky this time around, and I very early on got it 3+ of everything.
Oh, okay.
So it's there. I just took yours, probably.
Yeah. And Axe Dragonute. 4-star Dark Dragon, 2,000, 1,200. If this card attacks, it's changed to defense mode at the end of the damage step. We've seen a lot of cards like this that are pretty strong for 4 stars, and then they get destroyed by something pretty weak. But it's not useless. It's 2,200 with the Kaiba field, a Dark Dragon for Dark Light synergies.
Yeah, I think this card will see a lot of play in Gold, Platinum. I've already faced it a couple times. It's a solid beater. I think just a 4-star beater isn't good enough anymore for top level play. But like you said, it has some synergies. The Chaos synergy might be valuable at some point. It's a card worth considering. It's probably the best out of the bunch that he's giving us.
Yes. Now we're going to talk about the big nerf news. Changes to Beatdown for hires and Amazon on August 21st. World Champs are over. Huh?
The first part. The Beatdown's going live the 21st, and then the banned and restricted list is going later. 28?
It helps to read stuff, you know.
I'll check while you do the little intro to the section stuff.
Yeah, it definitely helps to read. I assumed that everything would be gone in 3 days. But the World Champs are over, and Konami is implementing changes right before the next Kaiba Cup. So make sure you practice. Get some new deck lists.
Right, so to confirm, the card forbidden/limited list changes are going live on the 29th, which is the same day that the KC Cup
Interesting.
starts. So they're not giving you any chance to practice before it goes. You're just going in there, so make sure you practice ahead of time if you want to bring one of these two decks and you want to see how it works with these card changes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Beatdown being nerfed ahead of time would just kill for hires prematurely before they even get nerfed. It's interesting.
That would be.
Yeah. Well, Beatdown is... Yep.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, I think that the reason why they do it like this is because they feel like it's a bigger deal to mess with people's collections than it is to mess with the characters. Even if the character skills end up shaping an archetype, which Beatdown doesn't quite do that. It's just very strong. But we've seen this before where they give you more warning when they are changing cards for the most part than when they're changing skills. And I think it makes sense to me. I think players will be more upset when they lose cards in their collection than when a skill just works differently than it used to before. What do you think? think.
Yeah, notably, they've never limited an SR or UR from a box. They've always limited the free ones you get from events or trader ones. That's another reason for that.
Yeah, that's a thing I didn't notice, but
because we don't get anything out of it. Yeah, we can't disenchant the card for much. I know if you disenchant a prismatic, you get 1 gem.
Oh, well, there you go.
But
yeah, so in other games, we've talked about it before. They have like a crafting system, which we would love to see in Duel Links, and it makes better use of your extra copies of cards. Whereas in Duel Links, there's no such thing. So if a card is limited or forbidden, we haven't had any of those yet, but if it's limited, then you just kind of have these extra copies you can never do anything with. Of course, we have already had things become less or unlimited. So
unlimited, yes.
Yeah, so you still hold on to them, but anyway.
Well, Beatdown's getting nerfed. It's one of the most relied upon skills in the history of the game. Starting when you're using Kaiba, I think people were just using the skill. And a lot of archetypes went through it, and it took an archetype for hire to nerf it. And it's now useless for your 4 stars and lowers, so they don't get any buffs. Only your 5 stars and hires get your 300 buff. And it's only going to be used in decks that run a lot of big guys. I think if Monarchs ever see play, they are a candidate. Masked Heroes, Hazy Flame. Hazy Flame always ran it, I think. And Vampires now run Beatdown typically, but we are seeing new innovations with Vampires. Cyber Style is a very common skill run with Vampires, and now I'm playing Life Point Boost Alpha, so we never know what's going to come with that. But we could say that Fur Hires are the main target here with Beatdown.
Yeah, we also can see like certain archetypes that we haven't seen for a little while might make a comeback because they're just solid choices and there's some card nerf or limitations that are coming, so maybe they can come back. And then the fact that Beatdown's changed affects them as well. So like Saphira Cyber Angels was a deck that used to run Beatdown sometimes, and now maybe it won't. So they're like, for any chance that it might have had to come back, maybe that won't happen anymore. I'm not sure if it was anywhere close to coming back, but once these archetypes leave, I'm sure there were some people who were thinking about trying it, except maybe Beatdown makes it not worth it anymore. Of course, a lot of them are running like Restart or other skills anyway, so maybe it doesn't really matter. But you can think of that as well, where something would have tried to fill this void, but maybe it can't without Beatdown. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think Red Eye Zombie, speaking of very old decks, Red Eye Zombie, Nephis, anything like that, would fall into that category as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fur Hires are getting 2 limits, but there's actually more to it because they share the semi-limit nerfs. So Dinah is getting limited to 1, and Danpa, a big deal is Danpa is on the semi-limit list for 2, and Danpa being put on the semi-limit list of 2 would kill Econ from the deck, so there's no more Econ with Fur Hires. Dinah doesn't really share any limit card with Fur Hires, so you're only going to run 1. This frees up 2 to 3 slots. Hey Trunade can go 2 because they're not going to be the one-turn kill. They're not going to one-turn kill at all anymore with Beatdown gone as well. So, Hey Trunades can go. And they're basically going to become a control deck. It's going to be a complete shift from aggro to control. You're going to use your seals to get your Dyna back. You're going to use your whizzes to negate stuff. You're probably going to run more Memory Loss or Floodgate or Paleozoic or Chalice to do stuff, and then tie that binds and go in. I think that's that's the way this deck is going to work.
Interesting. So it's a big shift in style. What do you think about kind of like instead of going all the way across, you go maybe to like an aggro control?
Yeah.
I'm thinking something similar to the way that like Aliens felt. Kind of felt like an aggro control deck to me.
Yeah, Aliens, they do have that capability, I guess. It's just their guys are so much weaker, and, Seal's going to be the strongest card. Seal and Wiz, 1600. Aliens had a big guy. Dyna's still in the game, and it's just gonna be hard to draw it, I guess. Well, no, you could get it with Beat. You could get it with Beat, and it's just if Dinah gets banished, the game's over. I think because you want Dinah in the grave so you could get him back with Seal or Mayhem for hire. But if he gets banished and Amazonas are still decent, then you lose.
Interesting. So do you think the deck will still be around? I mean, you said it will switch, so I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to be really grindy, I think, and work on card advantage. I think Wiz is going to be more important in the deck to work on the card advantage, and even if they shift into that mid-range form, Wiz would be useful to negating like a Wall of D or something. So I think having cards in the hand is like card advantage is going to be more important for them, I think, and that's why my new deck runs the Big Cattle Drive, which could draw 2 cards for them. Like after you run all your effects of popping face downs or face ups or drawing stuff, you play the Big Cattle Drive so you could draw 2 cards. And that definitely helps the Wiz negate more things.
Yeah. Do you want to go over this list, or?
Yeah, typically, I think they're all going to shift to tie that binds. I don't think there's any synergy that works for them because they're all different types. It's kind of weird I'm saying that, and I'm talking about the Big Cattle Drive, but I think they have enough beasts and beast warriors. The Joey Field isn't worth running just for some of them. The spellcasters aren't going to get anything. Forget who else. The beasts aren't going to get anything from the field, right? I think there's beasts, warriors, and warriors. The Joey Field. So I run 3 beats, 3 whiz. 3 whiz is a little debatable, but I think it could just. I don't think it's be too bricky. 1 Dinah, 2 Seal, 2 Donput, 3 Recon, 1 Sphere Karibo, 1 Big Cattle Drive, 1 Mayhem for Hire, 1 Paleozoic, and 2 Floodgate Trap Holes. I'm just doubling down on all of those like Trap Hole or Paleozoic cards I have to negate the first card of the opponent. That was my mindset, but it's possible they don't even run those cards. Another card I was considering was Horn of the Phantom Beast, and that is a card advantage card as well. It makes your little guys stronger, but it is dependent on having the Beast Warrior, which, of course, with this archetype, there are many different types, so it's not the most consistent.
Yeah.
Alright, so you're going to take on Amazonas now with Baby Tiger going extinct.
Yes, yeah. So similarly to the, you were just talking about, Baby Tiger is being limited to 2, but that means that Baby Tiger is out of the deck. No question, because the other thing that's limited to 2 is Onslaught, which is the entire point of playing the deck. So you're definitely not cutting Onslaught. It's possible that some people experiment with cutting 1 Onslaught, but I really don't think that that's a good play. You would have to have a lot of kind of recursion effects to make sure that you can keep an Onslaught going. I think it's much safer to play 2 and to just sub Baby Tiger with something else, another monster that fits the deck well. As we were just talking about when we were going over the list, there's lots of options, and some people aren't even running the Baby Tiger now. I think it's a very strong card. I do think it belongs in the deck until it's no longer allowed, but I don't think that it's worth changing stuff. So you would basically sub it in for, I'm thinking like, depending on what your list already has and which skill you're going for, you're probably going to sub it for an Amazonas Fighter, the fully grown Amazonas Tiger if you don't have it already in there. We were talking about Amazonas Sage as a possible option as well, depending on like what the meta looks like and which build you have. And then even some things like if you're running the My Monster Cards version, you might just run a Sphere Karibo or something like that, depending on what else is in your list. We were also discussing it that I think an unanticipated side effect is that the Endless Trap Hell version of the deck, which I'm pretty sure is now the most popular one, I think that that version is going to lose some of its popularity because I expect Fur Hires to drop in popularity, and the Endless Trap Hell version is kind of intended to be stronger versus Fur Hires. That's how I'm reading it all anyway. And so I think the strongest version going into this meta where Specifically, we're not exactly sure what the meta is going to look like, especially if we get a new box at around the same time that we get these card changes. I would just go with Parasite Infestation. It seems like the strongest list to me for just doing your own thing instead of trying to counter what other people are doing. And my list, we talked about, I'm a little off the beaten path, but I would go with 1 Vision Hero Witch Raider, 1 Lava Golem, which is a card that most other people have cut, but I love it. 3 Amazoness Princess, 1 Queen, 3 Amazoness Swordswoman, works super well with the Lava Golem. And the Jade Whistle, it's just a solid card as well. 1 Amazoness Tiger, the fully grown one. 1 Amazoness Fighter, another card that works well with the Lava Golem. 2 Forbidden Chalice, just because it's solid. 2 Treacherous Trap Holes. I skipped the 1 Jade Whistle. 1 Jade Whistle because it works with the skill. 2 Amazoness Willpower, and 2 Amazoness Onslaught.
Great. So I guess... we're going to have a new meta in a few days with Beatdown gone. Do you think Amazoness would take over that first place slot in those few days?
I don't think that the Beatdown is the big nerf that's going to substantially change things. I think that the Fur Hires will work fine. I mean, you've played it more than I have, but I've played against it a decent amount. I think it can work fine without the skill. It can do Tie That Binds or something like that and work okay. So I don't think things will change substantially once Beatdown is gone. Or nerfed, it's not even gone. They might still play it because you get some targets. Clearly wouldn't work as well, but I think the real change is once the cards go live. I don't think that the skill change is as big of a deal.
Well, we shall see. And
yeah. Before we move on, what do you think? Do you think it'll change it?
I think they're gonna. I think someone else is gonna be first.
Yeah.
Because the little guys just do nothing. Like, if you put tie that binds, you get 300, which is what Beatdown did in the beginning, I guess. And Beatdown's not going to be played with them because you're going to want more than 300, I think, for those guys. And it's just like, it's hard to say because Beatdown was just put in place so that your guy could be bigger than a big guy in some other deck, I think. Hard to say. I mean, I don't think Tie That Binds is going to work, frankly. Like I feel like the cards are just going to be too weak, but they're still going to be viable next week, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Viable, yeah.
I think even if I'm wrong about them still being the best deck, they're definitely still going to be viable. I would put them... I think the farthest they could possibly fall is like into the 4th best deck slot. I can't see any deck...
No, yeah.
Like passing that up. And 4th best deck is still very good for climbing the ladder. That would mean that Amazoness is the top deck, and then probably Spellbooks is the 2nd best, and then For Hire or Masked Heroes maybe at that point. Oh no, but Masked Heroes loses the Beatdown as well, so they might... I don't know how they'll change. Yeah, they have a couple options. Of course, we've seen some switcheroo. We've seen the Titan Showdown. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shake up. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, it's possible the Tie That Binds is just good enough that it doesn't make a difference as of now. But I guess that's what we're going to go with because it makes more sense. All right, so we're excited for the changes. I don't think anyone's complained, really. There is a consideration that we are hitting the cheapest free-to-play deck after 2 months of release, just about. So there is that consideration, but we fully expect a new cheap deck to take its place down the line.
Yeah, so I haven't heard any of it, but... one could think that perhaps free-to-play players would be upset that we nerfed the last best free-to-play deck, which was the Sylvans, and then now we're nerfing this current free-to-play deck, which is the For Hires. I think that that's not a huge concern because it's been played for 2 months and it's been the best deck for most of that time. So that's like a long time to get some value out of your cards. And B, we've seen that Konami's actually done a really good job of making sure that there's at least one viable and often very strong free-to-play deck in pretty much every meta. So between either free/event cards or just making them the easier cards to get or cheaper all in one box, all of that type of stuff, I do think that Konami is actually very cognizant of it and does a good job of making it so that even though it's really hard to buy like everything, it's impossible to buy everything as a free-to-play player with any sort of reasonable expectations. But it is still very possible to play at the highest level as long as you're not playing in one of the multi-deck formats. So you can definitely get to King of Games, is what I mean, as a free-to-play in every single meta that this game has existed. And in a lot of those metas, it's been like the easiest way to hit King of Games because it's been the best deck. So for all the flack that we give Konami on various other decisions that we don't agree with, their cognizance of this free-to-play issue as to being able to play at least one deck at a high level has, I think, been very much on point. And so we expect this next box to maybe have something to make up for this nerf. And if not that one, then probably something's coming down the pike.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about mermails. We are not TCG players, or we were way back in the day, so we can't say how good mermails are, but people are saying that is the deck to beat. Of course, if you looked at the data mines, you kind of know which ones are coming, but we don't know the full set of the full next box that is coming. But, and we don't know if those mermails are going to be URs or are they going to be the free-to-play deck, or which archetype is going to be put in that slot. But we do expect something. And speaking of which, I guess Amazonists are free-to-play, aren't they? Like, they're you need the good traps to have the best one, but all the cards are free, too. We just forget about that.
Right, yeah. Amazoness is definitely... It's essentially a free-to-play deck. You had to get a little lucky with the Princess, but now they've given out so many of the tickets that you can just get them, I think, if you're missing them. For some reason, the Onslaughts were hiding from me, so it cost me probably more than the average person to get them. But, yeah, pretty much just the Onslaught, and then most of the rest of the stuff you get from farming either the event or growing your character levels or farming the regular at the gate and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely still. So there you go. We already have a replacement option for free-to-play players if they feel like jumping into Amazonas.
Yep. The card flipper campaign is here. There is one new card called Plague Wolf. It is a 1,000 attack zombie, which you can double its attack and then it gets destroyed during the end phase. And this is almost identical to Karate Man.
Cool.
Remember when Karate Man was a deck?
Yeah, I do. I think I lost to it like once ever, but it was fun. I'm glad it existed.
Was it a Taya card? I forget. The Taya skill that ran it, I forget. Or a Bandit Chief?
I think I saw it with Taya where they would use the old version of...
Dual Standby?
Called. Yes, Dual Standby.
Yeah.
Which I totally forgot was nerfed, and then like I was going to build the deck with it, and I'm like, this would be well... the Gem Knights, actually. I'm like, I want more cards in my hand. Maybe I'll use Dual Standby. And then I went to look at it, I was like, oh, right. I will not use Dual Standby.
Right. Upcoming news. The RPG event is coming, and I guess I realized at the same time I saw maybe I cheated by looking at the data mines, or maybe I realized on my own that Bakura is going to be the Dungeon Master, because apparently there's like a season, the last season, where he's like a Dungeon Master or something, but that's his thing, and it's not going to be Duke, and then the Japanese data leaks from a magazine kind of confirmed it. So that's going to be fun. That's starting next week on the 20th, I believe. So that's Monday. Good day to start the work week with a new event.
Yep.
AC Cup, of course, as we discussed ad nauseum, the nerfs would all be live the day of the KC Cup, so make sure you have a deck in place and I'd say practice your nerf deck. Practice, cut those cards already and make it a challenge for yourself and see if they can compete.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good time to practice now, or to play something fun if you're kind of bored of stuff like we were doing. Yeah. But I do think that if you're trying to get max results, it's a good idea to practice now.
Tristan's here, so some new guys with muscular dudes and powerful gals in his rewards. Hopefully, we'll see what comes out with those. Decklist features. This is the thing where you could try to build your ideal deck list, and just more UI interfaces, I guess, to build deck lists, which is always welcome. And of course, Bell late September. I think next week we will get the upcoming news for the next month, but we are also expecting a bunch of skill changes. New skills coming to the game, and of course, motorcycles. We don't know when that's going to come, but all of this stuff is upcoming.
Yeah, presumably it'll be sometime soon. Probably at some point in September, I would think, because come on, how long are you going to tease it out for?
Yeah, you have to learn synchros by then. That's the thing. We don't know when we're going to study up on synchros and how they work.
We're going to have to go to class.
Yeah, there's going to be a dual school thing about synchro tutorial, I believe.
That's right, there will be, and that's what it's all about. Go to the dual school, learn how to play.
That is it for this week. A shout out to Richard Rivero for telling us that our podcast was not on Google Play Music, and not anywhere, actually. Thanks for him. Thanks for that warning. We got it back up soon after he told us, so thank you very much. You are our eyes and ears of podcast issues, which seems to be every week now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everything is figured out. It really seems like everything's messing with us because various things have gotten updates or whatever at the same time. So every week we have to change a different aspect of what we've been doing for an entire year without issue, and then all of a sudden just every week something's different. But hopefully we're out of that phase now.
Yes, hopefully this would release immediately after we put it out.
Yeah.
Search the Duel Assessment and listen and subscribe to our podcast. Check out the podcast and we're on our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/the Duel Assessment. We have a Patreon to help support our work, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Email us with any questions at theduelassessment@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment, me at Green Ranger CCG, Deck Tech at HS Deck Tech.
Yep. See you guys next week.